So I just wanted to explain this is a series, a three-part series on having high expectations for our kids, which is something that I'm very passionate about. I think it's very important, and all of you do too, obviously, because you're here today. So hopefully we can learn a little bit about what that means, how we can more effectively do that. But today, what we're going to talk about is the history of the disability rights movement. So I want to preface our conversation today by saying that there are some things that might be a little bit disturbing to people. And in particular, we're going to watch a video that has some language that's a little bit, it can be surprising, and also some images that are a little disturbing. I'll show you right before we show that, but I wanted to make that aware. But, the history of how people with disabilities have been treated isn't necessarily pretty either. So sometimes it's important to see and discuss those things to really understand how far we've come, and we still have a ways to go, but we really have come a long way. So I wanted to first off just share this quote. If we treat a man as he is, he will remain as he is. So, as we're looking at how we treat people with disabilities, or anyone in general, if we treat them the way they currently are, they will remain as they are. If we treat a man as he can and should be, he will become as he can and should be. I think this is just so powerful in talking about our high expectations. If we treat our youth, our children, other individuals as we hope and feel that they can become, they have that understanding that that is the capacity that we believe they have, and the ability to achieve that, if that is their goal. So this image is a little bit disturbing, and this is going to be the start of a video, but Americans with disabilities are a group of approximately 40.7 million people. Today, they lead independent, self-affirming lives, and they define themselves according to their ideas, beliefs, hopes, and dreams above and beyond their disability. But it's not always been like this. There's been a history of people with disabilities fighting harmful bias and stereotypes for centuries. For example, starting back in 1891, we see ugly laws show up in the Chicago City Code. This code outlawed the appearance in public of people who were, in the words of one of these laws, and again, we're going to have a little bit of language that's a little bit concerning here, diseased, maimed, mutilated, or in any way deformed so as to be an unsightly or disgusting object. By the turn of the 19th century, the theory of social Darwinism urged actions to prevent the disabled and other unfit people from perpetuating their kind. They did so by segregating them from society. They were sent to asylums and other congregate institutions. They were also sterilized so as not to reproduce their kind. At the time, these practices were laws in many states and were upheld by the US Supreme Court. In the 1940s and 1950s, so getting a little bit closer to current day, disabled World War II veterans placed increasing pressure on the government to provide them with the rehabilitation and vocational training. The 1940s also saw the creation of what was called the Willowbrook State School. This was a state-supported institution for children with intellectual disabilities. It was located in the Willowbrook neighborhood on Staten Island in New York City from 1947 until 1987. So to get an idea of how far we've come, it really is important to look at the past and look at where we came from and the advocacy that has gone on before us in order to get us to this point. So the video I'm about to show you is of Willowbrook State School. And I again want to share my disclaimer. This contains disturbing images, language, and nudity. The video is about 2 minutes and 47 seconds long. So it's not too long, but you're welcome to, if you want to mute the sound, you're welcome to do that.
Well, I visited the State Institution for the Mentally Retarded, and I think particularly at Willowbrook that we have a situation that borders on a snake pit, and that the children live in filth. But many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because of lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower. There's very little future for the children or for those who are in these institutions. both need a tremendous overhauling. I'm not saying that those who are the attendants there or the ones that run the institution are at fault. I think all of us are at fault. And I think it's just it's long overdue that something be done about it.
It's been more than 6 years since Robert Kennedy walked out of one of the wards here at Willowbrook and told newsmen of the horror he'd seen inside. He pleaded then for an overhaul of the system that allowed retarded children to live in a snake pit. But that was way back in 1965, and somehow we'd all forgotten. I first heard of this big place with the pretty sounding name because of a call I received from a member of the Willowbrook staff, Dr. Michael Wilkins. The doctor told me he'd just been fired because he'd been urging parents with children in one of the buildings, building number 6, to organize so they could more effectively demand improved conditions for their children. The doctor invited me to see the conditions he was talking about, so unannounced and unexpected by the school administration, we toured building number 6. The doctor had warned me that it would be bad. It was horrible. There was one attendant for perhaps 50 severely and profoundly retarded children, lying on the floor naked and smeared with their own feces. They were making a pitiful sound, a kind of mournful wail that it's impossible for me to forget. This is what it looked like. This is what it sounded like, but how can I tell you about the way it smelled? It smelled of filth, it smelled of disease, and it smelled of death. We've just seen something that's probably the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. Is that typical of ward life? Yes, there are 5,300 patients at Willowbrook, which is the largest institution for the mentally retarded in the world. The ones that we saw were the most severely and profoundly retarded. There are thousands there like that, not going to school, sitting on the ward all day, not being talked to by anyone.
So that makes me emotional every time I see it. So I'm a little bit emotional right now and apologize for that. That video was filmed in 1972, which is within many of our lifetimes. It wasn't that long ago that this was then what happened with individuals with disabilities. Their parents were encouraged by medical professionals, educators, people in their lives to place them in institutions because they were told that their family would be better off that way. As the parent of 2 children with disabilities, this is literally heartbreaking to think that that's the life that my kids could have had they been born earlier, and I hadn't understood how fulfilling and wonderful their lives could be and enriching they could be to myself as well and my family. So as I said before, I just think it's important to understand where we've come from so that we know what was possible at that time. And hopefully we never again will have situations like that. But it's because of advocacy for many people that we've been able to improve the lives and allow for self-determination and self-fulfilled lives for so many people with disabilities. Oops. Sorry, just one second. There we go. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the rise of the disability movement. In 1973, the Rehabilitation Act was passed. And for the first time in history, the civil rights of people with disabilities were protected by law. Again, 1973 wasn't all that long ago, and within many of our lifetimes. In 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act was passed and guaranteed equal access to public education for children with disabilities. Until 1975, children with disabilities weren't even guaranteed equal access to public education. In 1990, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, let me say that again, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, which further elaborated on the inclusion of children with disabilities into regular classes, and also the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, ensured the equal treatment and equal access of people with disabilities to employment opportunities and public accommodations. So as we think of special education, and many of our students might have individualized education plans, IEPs, that was brought into into common practice in 1990, not that long ago. But it's also important to know that we have ongoing improvements due to advocacy of people just like me and you. So there are some recent bills and things that have come about that are the result of parent advocacy and self-advocate advocacy as well, including it's called the Home and Community-Based Settings Rule, which is it's a rule that anybody that is receiving funds through Medicaid that is in a home and community-based setting, those settings have to have certain minimum standards, including allowing people to choose their roommates, allowing them to have privacy, to choose the things that they do during the day, to be able to have some kind of self-fulfillment and self-advocacy in their lives. And those things weren't especially common even 5 and 10 years ago. So we're continuing to improve the lives of individuals with disabilities, but we still do have a long way to go. So that brings me to what I think we can all do as parents of kids with disabilities. As you probably know, right now our legislators are meeting in session, and there are many bills on the table that deal with individuals with disabilities. On our website here, and it's, oops, hang on, just one second. I'm going to just navigate to our website and show you. Nope, that's not what I want. Hang on one second here. So this is our website. And if you go up into the upper right corner, there's a search bar. You can search for advocacy or advocate. And it brings up a page that has a lot of different articles on advocacy and how to advocate. In particular, the one I wanted to show you is advocating with your legislators. So our session is going until March 4th of this year, and there are a lot of ways that you can engage with your legislators to know, let them know that this is important to you as a constituent and that you want to further the cause of individuals with disabilities. And you can do this at any time. It doesn't have to be during the session. You can reach out to your legislators at any time, but you can find out who they are with this website. You can make contact by phone, email, or in person. But also, I just want to let you know that sharing your story with your legislator is very, very powerful. Letting people, letting them hear how disability has impacted your life and the hopes and dreams that your youth have, and even having them contact the legislators as well, can be extremely powerful, so that it puts a face behind the request. They get to see the people that they are impacting and how it could potentially improve their lives. But there's a template to help you formulate your message to your legislator. If you'd like that, you can do it on your own. You don't have to, but this makes it a little easier if it's something that you're not familiar with or haven't done before. There's also a short video you can watch that explains to you how to advocate with your legislators and tell your story. You can attend the legislative session in person or virtually. I have to say that I'm not a huge fan of COVID. It hasn't been my favorite thing. However, one thing that's come out of it that's been great is that we've been thrown into this virtual world, which is both good and bad, but it allows us to participate in things that otherwise we might not have been able to, might not have been comfortable to us or even accessible. And now most things are accessible virtually if being in person is going to be difficult. So you're able to watch a lot of the session virtually as well. And you can also get in contact with different disability organizations, and they can keep you updated on the issues, the bills that are being put forward. There's the Legislative Coalition for People with Disabilities, and you can sign up for their newsletter, the Disability Law Center, the Utah Developmental Disability Council. And we did have, this was put off actually, the Disability Advocacy Day and the annual legislative reception. They were going to be on January 19th, and I believe that was changed to February 14th. So those are actually coming up, but you can sign up to attend those and meet directly with your legislators, those who decide to participate in this day at the Capitol Rotunda. And you can let your legislators know in advance that you'll be there. I did that not last year, but the year before, right before COVID hit, and I contacted my legislators and told them I'd be there, and 2 of them came. And so that was really nice to see that they were there. So that is just another, I just wanted to point this out to you on our website. You go to utahparentcenter.org, go to the search tab and search for advocate, advocacy, advocate, and you should have information on it. It gives you good information on workshops that we have that talk about advocacy and help you learn how to become a good advocate, and also information on the current session. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And we packed a lot of information into just a short 15 minutes. But I would like to take some time for questions. If anybody has questions or comments, experiences that they've had with their legislators, experience with the disability rights movement, anything that they might want to say that they're comfortable with, you're welcome to unmute yourself and turn off your microphone, or communicate through the chat, whichever you're most comfortable with. And I quickly want to share one experience that I had a few years ago. It was brand new to advocacy, my very first experience, and I was pretty terrified because I didn't know what I was doing and was intimidated to be in my representative's home. But a group of us contacted our representative and said, we have children with autism, and this was when it was very difficult to get coverage for certain things. If you, with your insurance company, if you had a diagnosis of autism on your record. And so we were explaining to him the difficulty that we were experiencing with that, and how one of my friends was there, her son couldn't get an eye exam. He needed an eye exam, but because of the diagnosis of autism on his medical record, they wouldn't provide an eye exam for him. And so just bringing our children to his home and telling our stories and helping him put a face to a name as a constituent and a face to a real issue that is being experienced in the community was very helpful. And he was very kind to us, very nice, listened to us, took notes, and took our information back to his colleagues. And, you know, now we have much better situation with insurance covering services for individuals with autism. And it's just because of, you know, small advocacy events and opportunities that we can make an impact. We can have an impact. But I was scared to death. It just scared me to go do that. And luckily I had a friend go with me, a couple of friends. There were several of us there, and that made it a little bit less frightening. But it was a really good experience. And they're generally going to be pretty nice to you because they represent you. So that's kind of their job, to listen to you and to respect you. So are there any other experiences or comments or questions? Okay, so it looks like Diana has said, where can we find the bills that are being discussed in the legislature this year? Is there a link on the Utah Parent Center website? There's not a link on our website for all of the bills. You can go, I think probably the easiest thing to do would be to contact the Legislative Coalition for People with Disabilities, LCPD. Let me get their link. I'll put it in the chat for you, because they keep track of all of the bills that are going to be important for us coming up, and then give information on them. So you can sign up for their website. They also have a Facebook page that they are better about updating, and get a lot of information from them as well. You're always welcome to reach out to us at the Utah Parent Center. Our phone number is 801-272-1051, 801-272-1051, and we'd love to hear from you. Any issues regarding special education, if you have questions about accessing healthcare, we can find resources for you. Questions about advocacy and how you can become an advocate. All of those issues are things that we can help you with at the Utah Parent Center. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so very much for all of your participation. We really appreciate that. And we will look forward to seeing you all next week, 12 o'clock on Thursday, for the second in our 3-part series. So we'll have one next week, and then on the 5th, I can't remember what day it is, but the week after that as well. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.